The year 2011 witnessed a seismic shift in the Arab world. A wave of pro-democracy protests, dubbed the Arab Spring, swept across the region. It began in Tunisia, ignited by the self-immolation of a fruit vendor, Mohamed Bouazizi. His desperate act, a protest against police brutality and economic despair, resonated with millions across the Arab world. From Tunisia, the protests spread like wildfire. People poured onto the streets in Egypt, Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Bahrain. They demanded political freedom, economic opportunity, and an end to corruption. The world watched in awe as decades-old dictatorships seemed on the verge of collapse. The Arab Spring was fueled by a potent mix of factors. Decades of authoritarian rule, economic stagnation, and rampant corruption had created a tinderbox of discontent. Social media platforms, particularly Facebook and Twitter, played a crucial role in mobilizing protesters and disseminating information. The initial euphoria, however, was soon tempered by the realization that the road to democracy would be long and arduous. The Arab Spring, while a watershed moment, has left behind a mixed legacy of hope and despair. Tunisia, the birthplace of the Arab Spring, stands out as a relative success story. Following the ouster of President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, Tunisia embarked on a remarkable transition to democracy. It adopted a new constitution, held free and fair elections, and witnessed a vibrant civil society emerge. The road to democracy has not been without its challenges. Tunisia has faced economic woes, political assassinations, and terrorist attacks, yet it has persevered, demonstrating a commitment to dialogue, compromise, and the rule of law. Tunisia's success can be attributed to several factors. It had a relatively homogeneous society, a strong middle class, and a history of secularism. The Tunisian military, unlike its counterparts in Egypt and Syria, did not intervene in politics. While Tunisia's democracy remains fragile, it offers a glimmer of hope for the region. Its experience shows that democratic transition, though difficult, is not impossible in the Arab world. Egypt, the Arab world's most populous nation, witnessed a dramatic revolution that toppled President Hosni Mubarak. Millions took to the streets, demanding an end to his three-decade rule. The world watched in anticipation as Egypt, a pivotal country in the region, seemed poised for democratic change. However, the euphoria was short-lived. The Muslim Brotherhood, a well-organized Islamist group, emerged victorious in the subsequent elections. Their rule, however, proved divisive and short-lived. In 2013, the military, led by General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, staged a coup, ousting the democratically elected government. Since then, Egypt has witnessed a brutal crackdown on dissent. The military regime has imprisoned thousands of political opponents, silenced the media, and curtailed basic freedoms. The country has returned to authoritarian rule, more repressive than ever before. Egypt's experience highlights the fragility of democratic transitions and the dangers of military intervention in politics. It serves as a cautionary tale for those who believe that the Arab Spring would usher in a new era of democracy in the region. Section 4. Libya, Syria, Yemen, war and chaos engulfed the region. While Tunisia and Egypt experienced political upheaval, Libya, Syria, and Yemen descended into full-blown civil wars. The Arab Spring, instead of bringing hope, unleashed chaos and violence that continue to plague these nations. In Libya, the uprising against Muammar Gaddafi, who had ruled for over 40 years, quickly turned into a bloody conflict. NATO intervention, while successful in toppling Gaddafi, left behind a power vacuum that plunged the country into chaos. Libya remains divided between rival governments, militias, and foreign powers vying for influence. Syria witnessed the most brutal crackdown of the Arab Spring. President Bashar al-Assad responded to peaceful protests with overwhelming military force, triggering a civil war that has killed hundreds of thousands and displaced millions. The conflict drew in regional and global powers, turning Syria into a proxy battleground. Yemen, already the Arab world's poorest country, descended into a humanitarian catastrophe. A complex civil war fueled by sectarianism and regional rivalries has left millions on the brink of famine. The conflict has created the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The civil wars in Libya, Syria, and Yemen highlight the devastating consequences of failed transitions and the international community's inability to effectively respond to complex crises. These conflicts continue to pose significant security and humanitarian challenges for the region and beyond. Section 5. The unfulfilled promises youth, freedom, and corruption. The Arab Spring was driven in large part by the aspirations of young people. The region has a predominantly young population, and many youth felt stifled by a lack of opportunity, political freedom, and economic prospects. They yearned for change, for a better future. 10 years on, many of their aspirations remain unfulfilled. Youth unemployment remains stubbornly high across the region. Corruption persists, hindering economic development and fueling discontent. Freedom of expression and assembly, hard-won gains in some countries, remain under threat. The Arab Spring did, however, raise expectations for accountability and good governance. Citizens, empowered by their experiences during the uprisings, are more likely to demand transparency and hold their leaders accountable. The struggle for a better future continues. The Arab Spring may not have brought immediate and widespread change, but it has planted the seeds for a more just and equitable future. The journey is long, but the spirit of the Arab Spring lives on. Section 6. The Digital Uprising Technology and the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring highlighted the transformative power of technology, particularly social media. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube played an unprecedented role in mobilizing protests, disseminating information, and circumventing state-controlled media. Social media enabled protesters to organize across geographical boundaries, share information in real time, and broadcast their message to a global audience. It gave voice to the voiceless, allowing them to challenge official narratives and expose human rights abuses. The use of technology, however, was not without its drawbacks. Social media was also used to spread misinformation, incite violence, and polarize societies. Governments, quick to adapt, learned to use technology to monitor dissent, censor content, and spread propaganda. The Arab Spring ushered in a new era of digital activism, with both its promises and perils. It demonstrated the power of technology to empower citizens and hold governments accountable, but also highlighted the need for media literacy and responsible use of online platforms. Section 7. A generation later, the enduring legacy of the Arab Spring. 10 years after the Arab Spring, the Middle East and North Africa remain a region in flux. The uprisings, while failing to bring about widespread democratic change, left an indelible mark on the region's political and social landscape. The Arab Spring shattered the myth of authoritarian invincibility. It demonstrated that even the most entrenched regimes are not immune to popular uprisings. It empowered citizens, particularly young people, to demand greater accountability, transparency, and participation in the political process. The road to democracy, however, remains long and arduous. The Arab Spring highlighted the challenges of democratic transitions, the dangers of military intervention in politics, and the devastating consequences of failed states. The legacy of the Arab Spring is not one of unqualified success or failure, but rather a complex tapestry of hope and despair. It is a story that is still being written, a story of a region grappling with its past, present, and future. The Arab Spring may not have brought immediate and widespread change, but it has ignited a spirit of activism and a yearning for a better future that will continue to shape the region for generations to come. The journey is far from over, but the Arab Spring has shown that the pursuit of freedom and dignity is a powerful force for change.